Great, Heather. Hello, everyone. We are joining you from Southern California today, and my name is Violet Luxton, and I am the Assistant Director of Admissions for the Institute of Mathematical Sciences. And I am joined by my lovely colleague, Heather Reynolds, and I will let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Violet. Thank you all for joining us today. As Violet said, my name is Heather Reynolds, and I am the Associate Director of International Admissions here for Claremont Graduate University. So today we're going to dive a bit deeper into writing a personal statement for your graduate school application. What we'll do is I'll pull up, well, first off, we'll talk about the different types of statements: statement of purpose, personal statements, maybe like a research statement, things like that, that are generally in the graduate school application process, and what the subtle differences between all of the different ones are. We'll go into some examples of some potential writing prompts that you may have to write to, and also look at a couple of examples from students who have applied to our programs here, and looking at what made their particular statement of purposes stand out, what are good things to kind of note from their experiences there. Then we'll talk about things to keep in mind when drafting your personal statement, give you some tips there, tips for drafting, things to consider, how to organize your thoughts for all of these statements and personal statements and things like that. And hopefully you'll take some of that away for when you start your application for a graduate school program. And now is a really good time to do this kind of research and figure out how you're going to organize your thoughts, because you'll have plenty of time to think about all of those things. And then once you get a draft going, that's when you submit it to the people who you'll need to get letters of recommendations for, or letters of reference. So this is one of the first things I think you should start with after you figure out which programs are the best fit for you when you're doing your graduate school application there. So just looking at the specific types of personal statements. Now. There. Perfect. So looking at the different types of personal statements, the first one is a personal statement. So some people use them interchangeably, statement of purpose and personal statement, but there is a subtle difference between the two. So when you're looking at a personal statement, you're looking at who you are, what are your values, kind of more of that intrinsic kind of characteristics of yourself, and then how those values have influenced your educational path, or even a little bit of your career path in there. So kind of like your journey into whatever career you're looking at. And then you want to talk a little bit about this program. So the personal statement, the bulk of it is going to be a lot of your experiences and what you value in this world, and how this program is going to help you with achieving those goals and things like that. The statement of purpose, or also a statement of intent, it's more geared towards, okay, these are my exact goals. This is why I am pursuing this degree, and what resources this particular program offers to help you be successful in whatever career outcome you're looking at. They also like you to refer to specific faculty at the institution you are interested in working with there, and then how you plan to use this degree in the future. I think a little piece of a statement of purpose as well is who you are and where you came from, but it's not a bulk of what that statement should be. And I think overall, if there isn't a specific page amount that they want you to write about, I would say a good statement of purpose can be about 3 pages. Any more than 3, you could get away with like 4 or something like that, but any more than that, imagine, you know, the faculty or the admissions committee are the people who are reading these, and they have to read hundreds, sometimes even thousands of these. So you want to be pretty concise with it and have your ideas planned out before you kind of start writing there. A couple of other types of personal statements / statement of purposes that you may need to include for your application are a research statement. So those are probably going to be for programs with a heavy research focus, or maybe even some PhD programs may require that. And a research statement really hones in on the research that you've done in the past. So looking at some of your, if you worked in a research lab or worked on some specific projects with faculties, or if you worked on any specific projects, maybe for work or something like that, they want to see that there. They want to see what you're currently working on with research. Again, this is probably going to be for a heavy research program that you're applying to, that you'll need to have a statement like this. And then they want to see kind of where your research is going to fit in the future. So have an idea of how this research pathway is going to influence the field in the end there. And usually it's probably about 1 to 2 pages. So again, you'll have to be concise and know past research, present research, and where your research is going in the future there. It's not all programs that will require something like that, but that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at the application itself into whatever program you're looking into. Another type can be an artist statement. So the artist statement is for anybody who's looking at going into like fine arts or something like that. It's talking about your past research and how, not past research, your past artwork and how it has kind of influenced your perspective for your current projects that you're working at. They want you to talk a little bit about how you want your audience to react to your work and maybe influences, so past artists or whoever influencers you had that led you to that point there. So those are other types of personal statements or statements of research, things like that, that you may need to include with your graduate school application. So it kind of just depends on what you are applying to at the time and what the program requires in the application itself there. And also, sorry, I didn't mean to mention this earlier, but if you have any questions throughout our presentation, we're a small group. You're more than welcome to unmute yourself if you'd like, or you can just utilize the chat and we can answer questions there for you. In the meantime, if you want to chat, put in the chat what program you're currently in, or if you have a graduate program that you're interested in applying to in the future, then we can kind of try to cater the rest of this presentation to what you're looking for and potentially what materials you may need to include. So getting into some examples. So when you're looking at the graduate school application there, like I mentioned, they may put in there, they want a personal statement or statement of purpose. They may put in there, they want a research statement. So making sure you follow those directions will be important for you when you're submitting your application into the program there. A couple of examples of writing prompts. Not all schools will have a specific prompt that they'll want you to reply to, but some do. So you want to make note of that and make sure that your statement of purpose follows and answers all the questions within the prompt there. Okay, so the first two there, those are a couple of prompts from our general prompts for our applications. And then the third one down there is the specific prompt that they asked that our teacher education students write about for their statement of purpose. So please submit a 1,000-word statement of purpose that details your academic and or professional achievements, your specific areas of interest within your desired field of study, why you're a strong candidate for graduate studies at CGU, and your career goals. So pretty much a lot of those things that I mentioned in the last types of personal statement slide there. 1,000 words, that's about 3 pages or so. So right on the money with that. But they also want to make sure that you include why you are a strong candidate there too. As just kind of a side tip, if for whatever reason your application materials aren't up to snuff, let's say like your GPA is low in your freshman year of college or something, you could use the statement of purpose as a way to address some of those discrepancies within your application. I've seen that done in the past, but if not, just responding to the prompt there is sufficient enough there. Second prompt is please submit 2 to 3 page statement of purpose that details your academic, professional achievements, specific areas of interest within your desired field, why you're a strong candidate. So those are pretty much the same prompts there. It's just worded a little bit differently. And again, just covering all of those different things in your statement of purpose just makes the world of a difference. Answer all the questions. Let's just say that. Right now, I won't go into this last one here. We'll come back to that in just a minute. Let me stop sharing and I'll share a couple of examples of some of the statement of purposes that we have had in the past. Let me share. Are you all able to see that there? So this
Yes,
is
coming in.
okay. Thank you, Violet. Okay, so this particular statement of purpose was for a student who was applying to our arts management programs here at Claremont Graduate University. So I made a couple of notes here. I won't read it out loud, but I'll read a couple sentences in each section there for you so you can get a sense of the things that we're looking for when we're looking at a statement of purpose. So as mentioned before, the student is applying for our arts management program, and you saw the prompt initially. So it's talking about professional experience, education experience, why you're a good fit for the program, why CGU's program is a good fit. And this one is a little over, it's like 3.5 pages long. So about, it meets that kind of 3 to 4 page marker there. I would say I'm a pretty concise writer, so 3 pages is plenty for me, but sometimes people need a little extra space. I say no more than 4 pages maximum. But my colleague Violet may have a different opinion because I heard that her statement of purpose for her program was really good and she filled out a lot more pages there. But as long as you answer all of the questions in the prompt, I think that's gonna take like, that's the main thing to do with these statement of purposes here. So the first thing I wanted to note here is in the introduction section, she talks a little bit about her life, but then she talks about there is an apparent gap between economic classes when it comes to the education and infiltration in the art world. I want to change this belief that the arts are only for the higher class because that is simply not true. So that's a good statement to start of because it's a statement of her goal. And she sees this need within the art world, and that's what she wants to do. And that's kind of woven throughout her statement of purpose there. And it also demonstrates what she's passionate about within the arts business, arts management world there. Another thing I want to highlight there, you know, talking about their extracurricular activities. So in addition to their professional experience, I've taken art classes, spent summer days at their local theater studying and what it takes to put on a production behind the scenes, spent evenings up on the stage. In the second paragraph, during my free time. So talking through all of these things and how they're helping her hone her skills within the arts or the arts and humanities world is super important, I think, when showing that you have a passion for this field and you want to make a difference and you're continuously honing those skill sets. So she talks a little, she pretty much takes this whole section talking about those experiences with those extracurricular activities, things like that. Then she's talking about what I thought was interesting here is that they are talking about their previous research experience or what they've learned previously in the field. So this student clearly has come from an arts background. So they're tying into what they've learned from their bachelor's degree and saying that this has influenced their decision to go into a graduate program and how their perspective is going to be different than another student within the program there. So it demonstrates that knowledge there. But if you don't have that experience, that's not a problem there. But the student happens to have it, and they're showcasing it in their statement of purpose. I think that's a little something extra if you have that experience to include that there. The student also does a good job. So what they do is they kind of do it the way I did it in my statement of purpose when I was applying to my master's program. It was starting with my experiences, so looking at my professional experience, my academic experience, and how that's influenced me to apply to this master's or this doctoral program here. And then the last part is when I, as well as the student, says, okay, so knowing all of this about me, this is why this particular program is the right fit for my goal or what I want to learn more about or the gap I see in the field. And they also highlight specifically somebody that they want to work with at that particular school and how they can contribute to the field in the end there. So that's some of the research that you'll want to do. I know you'll be applying to multiple schools, but this section, I think you'll want to make sure that you highlight specific characteristics of the program that you're applying to and say, oh, I want to work with this person because they're working on this research, which aligns with my research. So this is where you want to connect the dots there. And then they also talk about, well, they go back to their theme there. So the theme was accessibility to art, right? So they were talking about how they see a gap between students, between the people who have access to artwork, and they want to expand that access to it there. So leaving that throughout their statement of purpose will be helpful too. And then lastly, they talk about their contribution to the arts management program. So they talk about their experiences. So again, with all that being said, you heard about my experiences. This is what I'm going to bring to the table here at your institution. So they're talking about their community work and working with foster youth and things like that. So tying it back to how they can contribute. And then the last thing is here, where they talk about their professional goals. So they talk about, in the end, it's like, all right, so now with all of these things, my fit and all this, this is what I want to do with this degree, and this is what I hope to achieve in the end, and kind of ending it that way. The next example I want to share with you. So going back really quickly to the prompts here. So this third prompt, as I mentioned, is a specific prompt for our teacher education applicants there. So they want you to see, this one has very specific instructions here. They want it typed, they want it double spaced, 12-point font. I downloaded it, so the format was a little tweaked, but you want to make sure you make note of any specific prompts or any specific requirements there for your statement of purpose. Generally speaking, they just really want to see content, but if they make it a point to put that information in there, you want to make note of that. So the first thing is, within that prompt, describe how your personal education background has shaped your desire to be a teacher. Explain why you think this program is the best fit for you, given what you know about the mission of CGU's teacher education program. Then what personal assets, intellectual, linguistic, physical, or spiritual, will you bring with you to the challenge of teaching culturally and linguistically diverse students? So they want you to tie in all of those different things, but also learn more about you as an applicant there. And let me share with you our example here. Oops. Oh, it didn't shift. I thought it got shifted there. That's fine. Perfect. So clearly they followed the prompts there. So what's interesting to note about this one, so in the prompt, they wanted you to talk about your personal background and how that fits in with the teacher education program. They do that here, really well. They talk about their personal background and their experiences in elementary school and who influenced them at that, age of their life. So they talk a lot about that. And then they tie in, okay, so because of these experiences, this is why I want to become a teacher. Going back to the prompt there, where it's like, why did you want to become a teacher in the first place? And then talking about why they chose their academic trajectory. So addressing their educational trajectory, where they started off with cultural anthropology, which isn't, education, which isn't a teaching background, but they talk about, okay, so at this point in my life, I love to study people, I love to study culture, so I went into cultural anthropology. So you have to find a way to tie in your educational experience with your master's or PhD program, even if it's not exactly the same there. So it depends on what you're switching to. If you're switching to IT or something like that, you want to think about your experiences in your bachelor's or your educational past or even your professional past to help tie in why you're doing this particular master's or doctoral program there. For me, I went from a bachelor's in anthropology myself to a master's in public administration. And the way I kind of phrased it in my statements of purpose was pretty much the social justice kind of tie, where I learned more about cultures and how public administration helped me implement certain programs to educate the public about different cultures and things like that. So you want to think about tying those together to make sure that it makes sense for the reader and for, you know, the admissions review committee there. So then, again, going back to the prompt, the second thing that they wanted from you was to explain why you think this program is the best fit for you, given what you know about the mission of the teacher education program. So why is this program the right fit? This is where you need to showcase your research skills on, you took a look at the mission or the vision of the school that you're applying to, or even just the program that you're applying to, and saying, this is why this program is the best fit. They mentioned here that utilizing theory and practice in the form of education, they have tools, you know, specific tools that help students become successful. So you'll want to showcase that, hey, I looked at your program, this is why it's the best fit for me. I don't believe the student has a specific professor that they want to work with, but they showcase the highlights and the benefits of that particular program there. So the student throughout their and I'd be happy to send these samples to you as well if you want to read through them. Just send us an email afterwards if you want to read and see what they wrote about, because it wouldn't make sense to read the whole thing to you. But anyway, so the student does talk about their social justice kind of lens there, and they weave it throughout their entire statement of purpose. So that's something that you want to do. You want to kind of find your theme in your educational experiences and your work experiences, and then how that will tie into what your goals are in the future there. And in the prompt, it talks about, you know, your personal assets and what your personal assets that you bring to the program there. So you want to talk about those things. Like I mentioned before, cultural anthropology is not a teaching degree. So this student is utilizing the social justice kind of lens to kind of help tie all of that in together there. Oh yeah, so, and this is the section where they tie in the personal assets to teaching their students. So they're looking at their experiences as a special needs teacher and how that lens will help them within the program or add perspective into the classroom or into the research that they're going to be doing in the future there. And then the last thing is that I wanted to note for this particular statement of purpose is they ended with a famous quote. If you can find a good famous quote that kind of ties in everything at the end, that could be a way to kind of end your personal statement or your statement of purpose on a good note. I took the approach of adding it at the beginning. I had a Michelle Obama quote that I put as my hook. So you can use those within your statement of purpose as well. I would suggest either something that focuses specifically, like a famous researcher within the field that you're looking at, or just in general, good kind of quote could be at the beginning or the end of your statement of purpose there. And I think it's perfectly appropriate to include either or there. And let's go back to the presentation. So those are a couple of examples. Again, like I mentioned, If you want me to share those examples with you, I'd be happy to after this session, so you can take a look in better detail. But those were a few highlights of things that I think you should know for your statement of purpose. So now we're going to move on to things to keep in mind before drafting with Violet.
Thank you, Heather. That was awesome. All right, so I think Heather covered everything. I am just gonna reiterate some points for you. So I'll summarize and synthesize some of the great points Heather made. And one of the main points that she mentioned was your personal assets and creating a central theme around those personal assets that you're showcasing. So as Heather mentioned, you always just want to start off with the instructions. For the United States Foreign Policy Fellowship, there are clear guidelines for what they're looking for. And you might also want to go on their website and see what the foundation stands for. If they have any specific vocabulary you can incorporate into your personal statement, that will also enable the reviewers or whoever's reading your statement of purpose to kind of say, oh, okay, this is analogous to what we want to see in our student. She's writing about this. We're on the same page. So you really want to make sure that your statement of purpose is parallel to whatever the values and mission of whatever organization or university you're applying to. So being really clear with the prompt, with the guidelines, and particularly with the vocabulary that you use is going to help you out a lot. And then what are they asking for? You don't want to have a whole statement of purpose written up and then find out they wanted a statement of intent or they wanted something completely different. So just make sure you have everything down. If there's no word list or kind of cap on how many words they want, 2 to 3 pages is great, as Heather mentioned. So just be mindful of those basic logistical items. And then you get to go to the fun part where we'll kind of brainstorm together. And that is there something particular about you that is going to provide unique value to the institution or whatever organization you want to fund you? So what makes you stand out? And that really comes down a lot to who's reading the application of the statement. And as Heather mentioned as well, you're going to have folks that are reading hundreds. You can imagine your brain shuts off when your professor assigns you paragraphs and paragraphs to go through. Sometimes I've seen my brain just shut off and I just kind of skim for the main highlights. You don't really want them doing that in your statement of purpose. You want them engaged, hanging on every line. And so one of the things that you can do that Heather pointed out really great is a hook. Something that's going to grab them and draw them in. That could be a quote, or that could be something with a lot of sensory detail, really bringing them into a moment that was pivotal for you. So again, I would avoid cliches as much as possible. The folks that are going to be reading your application, they've pretty much heard everything through a template. Students often just kind of copy and paste templates. You don't want to be lazy. You want to stay away from templates and really use your authentic voice. I've talked to faculty that have read statement of purposes that they might not have been as tight grammar-wise or syntax-wise with the fundamentals, but they could tell that the student's genuine voice was coming through. You're going to want to lean towards authenticity more than just a perfect template of a statement of purpose. And so right now, go ahead and really think about the statement of purpose that you're writing. And we're going to do a writing exercise for 1 minute to help you brainstorm what your personal assets are that you're bringing into your statement of purpose. So this prompt is going to be 3 minutes of just who are you? So this can be free-flowing. I am reliable. I am a good worker. I am a groundbreaker. I am a maverick. Just start jotting down things that make you who you are. And we're going to do three of these free writing exercises for 1 minute each, so it'll total 3 minutes. So you don't have to think about time as a big issue. Just start writing and let it flow for 1 minute here. And if you have any blocks or anything, go ahead and just drop it in the chat. But for 1 minute, go ahead and start building your personal assets. What makes you who you are? And again, what unique value will you add to the program or university you're applying to? And we'll just go 1 minute on the clock here. All right. So thank you for indulging us and getting some of the creative, free-flowing juices going. Does anybody want to unmute themselves and share one signifier or one element that they are very proud of or that they feel really exemplifies them?
I can.
All right. Awesome. Go for it.
I said I love learning or experiencing new things and I'm passionate about getting different perspectives on the world.
Beautiful. All right. So working with that.
Sorry about it.
Oh, you're good. Are you going to chime in, Heather?
Yeah, I was just going to say that kind of ties in with the foreign affairs kind of trajectory that you're going into. So that's good. So I would start weaving that into your statement of purpose. Like, I'm interested in learning all of these perspectives, and then that will lead me to a more holistic kind of decision, you know, for whatever issue you're going to look at. So I think that's a great one. So thinking about those things about yourself and making sure they tie in with your program will be something that you can link in your statement of purpose. Sorry.
Beautiful. Exactly. Everything that Heather said. And so taking that, understanding that those qualities do add a particular value because it shows that you're open-minded. It shows that you have a capacity for lifelong learning. You're not just in this degree to get something and get out. You really value learning and learning about different people as something that's core to who you are. And just as Heather said, that's something that the readers are going to be salivating about because you're the perfect type of person to kind of be a global ambassador. And taking that, so maybe generally a student might have a similar background that they really love learning about different perspectives. And they might just say flat out, I love learning about different perspectives. But one of the things that you can do to really stand out is think about why you love different perspectives. Was there a pivotal moment in your life? Was there a relative or mentor or faculty that really brought new perspectives to your life that you realized how beautiful it is to live outside of a monolith and see diverse cultures? And try and create a narrative around that. So one example you can kind of use is incorporate some sensory detail to create a moment, to create something, an environment for the reader to inhabit. So instead of just telling them flat out, I like learning about new cultures, you could say, when I was interning in a clinic or whatever kind of international experience you might have had. I encountered cultures that really challenged my belief, and it was very difficult for me, but I grew from the experience. So really conveying the wisdom that you garnered from that, and then also some of your background, maybe some volunteer experience you had or some internship experience, and you're creating a pivotal moment that grabs the reader. So instead of saying that one sentence, I love XYZ because, you take what you beautifully articulated and you kind of turn it into something that contains a lot of information within it in a new way that isn't cliche, and that kind of takes the reader outside of what they're normally used to reading, so they don't just shut off. Beautiful example. Thank you, Brooke. And I have no doubt that that will help you leaps and bounds when you're writing that fellowship application.
Thank you. On that note, I do have to get off here. I got to go to a night class actually. So,
all right.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for
appreciate
joining us. And don't be a stranger. If you want any tips after, we'll drop our email in the chat here. And we always want to hear from you and support you in your application. So do not be a stranger.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for attending, Brooke.
Sure. Thanks, James.
All right. So beautiful. Okay. So taking that a step further here, for 1 minute, so this is very fast, just jot down pivotal life experiences, pivotal moments. So now you kind of have a sense of your asset, what you're bringing. As Brooke mentioned just beautifully, she's bringing an open mind, affinity for different perspectives, and an ability to work well with diverse people and diverse situations. Now that those assets are built out, now why don't you build out your moment or your central experience and environment that you're going to build for the reader. So what were pivotal moments for just 1 minute in your life that you feel really made you who you are? Could have been a graduation, could have been something really painful and challenging. But jot down pivotal moments in your life and go. All right. I actually enjoyed that one a lot more than the first one. It's a little bit easier for me to think about moments than qualities. I don't know about you all. But Ruamai Munashe, how did you find the experience?
Yeah, I think it was actually like quite interesting, because it actually helped me like think back to like one of like the things that actually made me want to like get into data science and then about like machine learning algorithms. So I looked back on when I actually first took my first accounting class in high school, and it was one of the moments that I like realized that most like businesses or small businesses fail because they do not have access to quality financial resources as well as data that they can use to grow their businesses.
Wow, thank you. That's a very meaningful experience, and one that you can certainly build upon and would be great for a statement of purpose that just carries so much in there. Kind of your skills, your knowledge of financial accounting, your background, and a problem in society that you want to solve, that you are going to fix. So thank you for sharing that. Now I'll encourage you to, now that we kind of have those personal assets, and now you have a pivotal moment that you're going to build potentially a story around. Now think about what brings you joy. Why do you want to solve this problem? Why are you drawn to filling this gap? And value change makers and global ambassadorship. They hear a lot of statements. And am I coming through okay?
You were frozen
You're
for a
gone for a
second.
little while.
Yeah, sorry about
Okay.
that. You're stuck on mine for a second.
All right, test. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so where did I leave off? There's going to be a lot of students that might be saying something similar. They might want to solve similar problems, but what is going to stand out about you and what you're particularly bringing to this program that is going to make you stand out in terms of being a leader in solving these problems? And that often can come when you access your joy, your passion, and let that kind of lead you. So for 1 minute, go ahead and write down what makes you happy, what makes you joyful, and what makes you passionately
James, are you able to hear me? Oh.
Am I frozen?
You're good now. Just stop.
All right. Okay, great. All right. So Ruarai Munashe, what brings you joy around data science and computer programming?
The one thing that brings me joy from like data science, I would say, is the fact that I enjoy solving puzzles and working with data. It's all about trying to find out that like needle in a haystack that is making like that will make like a huge difference in like a data set or like in a decision that you want to make. So I would say that is the one thing that makes me so passionate about it. In the process of looking for it, of trying to find it, and then tying it to what like your assumptions may be, or like what you're trying to find, is something that makes me it's like that process for me is just like exhilarating.
Wow, that was infectious. I could feel that. And I got excited about solving puzzles and data sets. And personally, that does excite me as well. But I have a feeling even if I wasn't, I would have some kind of emotional reaction to that because your passion is infectious. And so that almost what you said verbatim would be a great opener. I enjoy solving puzzles or kind of coming up with a hook And everything you said really has a lot of nuances to not only your desire to solve complex problems, but also that justice element in terms of the coded gaze, people's assumptions about data that might be wrong, depending on how it's run and who has access to those data sets. So I think that was a beautiful exercise there. And I'll open it up to you. Do you have any questions on any of those 3 exercises and how you're going to tie it in to a statement, or would you like to move along and kind of go over some other themes here?
We could move along.
That was beautiful. All right, thanks, Heather. So kind of, yeah, my pleasure. Tips for drafting. So now we've already gotten some of the creative energy out there. We have something tangible to work with. We have our assets, we have our passion, and we have our moment. So now we're going to world build and create the scaffolding of our statement of purpose. So exercise 3, we just did how you express your passion. And what you can do also is record yourself. This is one of my favorite things to do, is recording myself reading or reading out loud. You're going to get into a completely different cadence and experience with your statement of purpose that you might not have. So kind of what we already did here, you can keep doing. Do a quick write. Just let your brain flow freely, brainstorm, if you will. Let it all rain down onto the page, and don't worry about if it sounds good, if it doesn't. You can correct those grammar and syntax errors as you're editing, but it's good to just get something out on the page. So do quick writes like we just did. That's how you do a quick write. Those are 3 different examples. So go back to that, or kind of move forward in your own way and synthesize as a quick write. That would be another great exercise. So what you can do also is with bullet points, you could just jot things down in free flowing, just stream of consciousness. It really just depends on what works for you to get it out. But I would recommend starting with something a little more unstructured like we just did, and then looking at what you wrote and dissecting it into bullet points, and then taking those bullet points and turning that into an outline. And then you can kind of mix and match as you will and create a whole form for your essay. So it flows very nicely there. And 750words.com or Pomodoro, you can check out those apps. You can also go statement of purpose writing app. There's a lot of really great technology out there that can help you. So if you are technologically friendly, go ahead and search the web and see if there's some tools, some apps, and some fun interactive ways that you could write your statement of purpose that we might not have thought of. But those are 2 examples there. All right, so now we're going to get into the do's and don'ts. This is just pretty straightforward. You want to avoid cliches, as we mentioned. So we got you in touch with your story. We got you in touch with your place and your passion. But, try and avoid ever since I was a little kid, or when I was, or I love, or I like. Those statements, you're in graduate school now, you're all sophisticated writers. So you can create a story, feel like you have agency to grab the reader and pull them in to your story. And ever since I was a little, it's a little lacking. So you want to come in hard and you want to hook them. And don't go beyond the word or page limit, please. That's one way to have the reader shut down on you, is to give them a lengthy paragraph that's small font and not double spaced and really long. They've been reading too many for that. So be kind to yourself and them, and keep it to an adequate 2 to 3 pages or whatever limit is explicitly stated in your application. And if you're like me, you may want to procrastinate and wait until the last minute, but please let us help you. Email us, we'll help keep you accountable, or we'll give you a tip if you need help. One of the ways you can leverage a network of support is by emailing us, staying in touch, and we'll make sure that you get some extra tips there so you're not procrastinating, because there's nothing that kills your creativity more than having a deadline on your back, and it just stifles the free flow and authenticity that you're going to give. And it really stifles your own voice from coming through because you're thinking more about getting something finished really fast than articulating it and crafting it. So give yourself adequate time and you'll reap the benefits. Don't use a template. Templates, they'll spot those a mile away. And so one of the things that we did with you was give you that groundwork so that you can make your own. You don't need a template. Mostly use examples that Heather showed, those 3 essays. Email her or myself and we'll send those to you. Those would be good examples, but templates, no, they spot those a mile away. And again, oh no, if I could reiterate this enough, I don't think I can actually, but even if you are brilliant and you have a 4.2, in this competitive age, that is not enough to get you into the college that you want. Especially at the colleges in our consortium, we see time and time again, valedictorians, salutatorians, 4.2 GPA students get denied. And students with great statements of purpose and recommendations, but maybe not the best grades, get accepted. So this can be a really great way to level the playing field between your GPA. If you do have a lower GPA than you'd like, go ahead and bulk up your statement of purpose. And if your GPA is really high, congratulations. Give yourself time to make an even better statement of purpose, and then you'll just be a force to be reckoned with. All right, so now the do's. Now that we've gone over the don'ts. Start early, as I mentioned, don't procrastinate. Give yourself enough time to revise everything. And how many cooks in the kitchen is too much? How many readers are going to mess up your narrative? What most guides agree to is 2, between 2 to 3. Any more than that, and you might have too many perspectives to deal with. But if you like multiple opinions, you can get as many as possible. Just keep in mind, it might kind of muddy up the water a little bit. So between 2 and 3, if you want to start small and then broaden it, you can. But that's a good number to stick between. And then tailor your essay to your institution and program. We cannot reiterate that enough. You don't want to be writing about your data science skills, maybe in a humanities statement of purpose, unless you're particularly going to talk about your transdisciplinary lens. And in that case, I highly encourage you to kind of blend disciplines, but be sure that you're sticking to a centralized theme. You're not going on too many different tangents, and your outline will help you do that. So with your outline, you can check, okay, did I talk about this asset? Yes, I already mentioned that. Did I talk about my internship? Yes, but you're not going to be redundant. And so if you see in your outline that you've mentioned your passion for solving complex mathematical problems 4 times, then you're going to have to put some other things in there and make sure you're only mentioning that once. So the outline can be a good place where you tailor your essay to the institution or program or proposal that you want to get. And that outline is going to be where you can connect all the dots and dot your I's, cross your T's, make sure everything is tight and ready to present to your reader or your recommender for that matter. And we can go to the next slide, please. All right. So now we'd love to hear more from you. Please stay in touch if you're interested in just following up or learning more about statements of purpose. Heather and myself are always happy to make time to talk with you. And if you're interested in application fee waiver codes, thank you so much for sitting through our presentation. We would love to give back and honor your time. If you do want to apply to CGU, let us know and we'll give you an application fee waiver code. So that'll take $80 out of your back into your pocket and out of the fee that you might have otherwise had to pay.
I have a quick question for you guys. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see come across when students are sending statement of purpose letters?
The most common one I see is when they don't change the name of the institution. So like Violet said, Cross your T's, dot your I's, revise, cater it to the institution, but we all know it's easier to copy and paste things, but you want to double check and make sure that the institution name aligns with the institution you are applying for. That is like the number one error I see. As far as other ones is where they don't match the prompt. So they don't answer all of the questions. And I think that's a really missed opportunity, because all you needed to do was answer that question and then, you know, you would be fine. But just making sure you answer all the questions within the prompt, I think is another one that I see. I don't know if Violet has any other thing that she said sees as well.
Nailed it, Heather.
I have a question. Earlier on, I think, Heather, I think you mentioned about having like a central theme when you're writing your essay. I was just wondering, is it a bad thing to have like other mini themes, like sort of like sub themes in your personal statement? Is it wrong to have that? Or what would you like? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess as long as those sub themes kind of align with the program itself, you know, I can't think of an example right now, but your main theme obviously clearly connects. But if you have sub themes, just make sure they're all relevant to that particular, it kind of just depends on what they are. Yeah, there's no right or wrong for that, as long as you have the one central theme. But it just kind of depends. I would say if you have sub themes, just as long as they align with the overall program, I think you should be okay. And like Violet said, you know, if after this you're applying to graduate schools and you want us to look over it for you, we'd be happy to do that, even if you wouldn't be applying to CGU. Or you can check with the admissions representative of the program that you're applying to see if they'll review it as well. I know our team does that for our applicants for each program. So that could be something to look into as well.
All right, thank you.
And I'll jump in. Heather nailed it, but yeah, just make sure it's reinforcing what you're trying to say in that main theme and not detracting from. So if it feels scattered, like you're taking them on too many different tangents, maybe you'll want to tighten it up, but it should feel comprehensive, like it's all directing towards your central theme and reinforcing and uplifting and elevating it and not detracting. And you should be good.
Oh, all right, thank you.
And if as you're writing, you find you have more questions as well, we're here to support you. And I'm sure you have, you know, other teammates, you know, at your college that will support you as well. So utilizing all those resources, you know, but like Violet said, no more than two, I would say no more than 2 to 3 readers, because then you'll have too many opinions then. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. And if you have any follow-up questions, just let us know. Thank you.